Business Spotlight, brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.
I'm Sonya Farrall and welcome to Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythms City Radio and Baba Baboon. Joining me in the studio this week, we've got the delightful Andy Jackson from iCreation, a creative agency incorporated in 1987 and based right in the heart, right here of Stoke-on-Trent. Andy, hello.
Hi, Sonya. Thank you. What an amazing introduction.
Well, you bring me chocolate, I bring you an amazing intro. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really good, thank you. Really good.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming in for Business Spotlight here at Cross Rhythms in this amazing studio. I always feel very lucky to come in here, Andy. I don't know about you. But yeah, iCreation then. You know, you've been in the creative industry for a long time, a long time. And being a bit of a creative myself, you know, but for you, you've got more experience than me in the industry, a little bit more experience than me. But what have you found over the years, like going back to the early days even, and then we'll lead up to now 2024, but the main barriers or stigmas that the industry does face?
Interesting. Yeah. We've got a lot of expertise in our industry, and going back to the early days when we were pre-internet, pre-digital, even pre-mobile phones, it almost seemed easier to identify the expertise that we've got. It was a time when big companies maybe had a communications person or a communications director, but not necessarily a communications team. So it was pretty simple for us to show how we would mesh with a big company or a big organisation in the public sector. I think nowadays our industry is much more complicated in relation to the number of channels we've got to use, the number of media we've got to use. And we see, don't we, all the time, you must see it, that companies, organisations have got their own communications teams, sometimes quite sizable. So one of the challenges is to work out how we actually mesh with supporting those teams. And I find, thankfully, that at iCreation we're really good at showing that. You know, we're good at showing how we can add value into those relationships. We can identify what a communications team might need, where the gaps are, and I like to think we're really well placed and in a good position to help them fill those gaps. We started out very much as a words-based organisation. I mean, essentially, when we started, there was either words or there was pictures, and that was it. There was no digital. We made photographs on film. We printed on paper. And as an agency, we've set a stall out over the years to innovate. And that goes back to 1989, when we were one of the first companies in the UK to bring Apple Mac computers into the operation. Nobody had even heard of them. So we bought our first Macs in 1989. We went full screen page makeup in 1990, which was, we were ahead of the national media. We were ahead of regional and national newspapers. People weren't doing it. And over the years, we've continued that theme of innovation. So things that seem so commonplace nowadays, we were in the vanguard, at the forefront of doing it. For instance, in 1993, we were the first agency to send a photograph from one computer to another computer in London. And we think it's just an email attachment now, isn't it? In 1993, it was virtually impossible. Yeah. So, you know, it's just, we have been in the industry a long time, but one thing that's been constant and continues to this day is we try to innovate. We try to do new stuff. And that's what helps us keep young and fresh and exciting.
Definitely. And, you know, when you think back, just you saying there, when you think back to like the print, and how you used to share information, share photographs and all that sort of thing. And now it's not just even on email. You can just share pictures, photographs on your phone, just drop them over. You don't, you know, with Wi-Fi and all that sort of thing. But so you've seen, you know, you adapted over the years. You continue to adapt as well. And going ahead, sort of 2024, and what you do and what you're looking to do, you can still keep seeing all those different technologies that are coming in, the different apps, the different social medias, all the different platforms. Like you said, there's a multitude of channels where content is shared, which again can create sort of barriers, can't it, for people in the creative industry?
Absolutely. I mean, we're faced with that many opportunities, aren't we? And sometimes clients will want a little bit of everything rather than a lot of something. And sometimes it's a lot of one thing that works best. So again, those skills that we develop in our industry over the years are maybe about advising on the best channels or the best media to use. It's fascinating, isn't it, that now we've got video, we've got animation, we've got 3D modelling. We can take CAD data from our manufacturing customers and translate that straight into, working communications resources. We've got the Unreal Engine and all the challenges that brings, but all the opportunities that it brings. We are fascinated in the way that we can use gaming software and gaming capabilities to produce stuff that isn't games. And we're using that to great resource, to great effect for some of our clients. And but we still make print, which is amazing. We still make newspapers and magazines which are distributed all over the world. And I'm really sort of proud of that. It is a little bit anachronistic, although again, we've seen the resurgence of vinyl, aren't we, in audio. We're now seeing a lot more photographers going back to using 35mm film or transparency film, just because of that lovely warm quality that we get from using those old technologies. And I have to say, there's a national debate now, or an industry-wide debate about, well, actually print's got some value, putting something in people's hands. We're almost going full circle. We all know the power of digital. We all know how we can circulate all the channels, all the impact we can have and how we can measure. But there's something to be said for putting something of value in front of people on a piece of paper. So, it's not the be all and end all. I don't think it's going to go back. It will never be the same as we were before. But it's just, never diss the print.
I'll never diss the print. And for me, it does give a different experience. I know, like you say, digital and technology, and that is absolutely amazing. But going back, after, COVID, how COVID affects lots of different industries and businesses and everything. Do you think COVID has actually sort of spearheaded the technology, or do you think it's increased the speed, should I say, in which new apps and new developments are coming through? They were always going to happen, I think. I'm not going to say that they weren't, but do you think COVID actually spurred it on?
I think, look, we could talk a long, long time about the bad things that happened because of COVID, and I think our industry was really severely affected by COVID, but the best people in our industry saw COVID as opportunities to assess, to change, to draw up plans for the future. And I think you're dead right. I think it really focused their minds on what the industry needed to be. And I know a lot of people during COVID managed to push forward things like sign-off times with clients, doing things online rather than the interminable meetings. The adoption of Teams or Zoom as a client interface is amazing for our industry. It means we don't sit around with pencils in our mouths looking at great big printouts. We actually get business done. And my agency is very much about getting business done. We're not a meeting and tea party agency. So I think, look at COVID as an opportunity to change what we do. We transformed our business during COVID. So we went from working in a 3,500 square feet Victorian office building to working from home. We invested in the right technology to enable that. Productivity went through the roof in the best, up. People started to enjoy working from home. It was never a barrier or a problem. We recruited new people, young people, during COVID, which was an opportunity for them to join the team from home. And interestingly, it was the old stagers who'd been working with us for 10, 15, 20 years who wanted an office at the end of COVID. So we actually sold our big 3,000 square feet offices. And now, as you know, we work from a lovely modern studio in the Spode creative village.
Yeah.
You know, with neighbours who really inspire us, part of that growing creative community. Visitors like yourself who pop in for a cup of tea, and you know, we've got lots and lots of people who treat our workspace as a bit of a shared space, and we love that. It's a hybrid space, so you know, we're in there when we want to be in there, and then the teams are able to work from home when they need to or want to. And it's just, I think the whole way of working has become much better, and productivity has increased as a result of it. So yeah, I didn't enjoy COVID from a business point of view. It was very, very difficult. Some of our customers understandably focused on sustaining their businesses rather than some of the activity that we would work with them on, and our turnover dropped during COVID, but you know, it was an opportunity to transform and to change, and we took full advantage of that.
Yeah, and you've mentioned there as well, you know, that sort of hybrid way of working. I mean, now again, even going forward into the future, how do you think businesses do actually benefit from having that flexibility?
Massively. I mean, you know, I'm old enough to remember the days in our industry where working hours were long, flexibility was non-existent. Some people I've worked with and some colleagues I've worked with in other organisations talk about it actually being a sort of badge of honour for managers to make people not be flexible, to impact on people's home lives and family lives. My priority is the well-being of all the people in our team and the families. You know, and when we started looking at the way that the company operates post-COVID, it was really clear that people's well-being needed to be a priority, and that extends to the families as well. So we are probably the most flexible organisation there possibly could be. I'd probably be criticised if people looked at it. You know, we trust our employees to do the jobs. We give them the flexibility that they need to enjoy a good work-life balance and to make sure that the families can be the priority. And I believe that benefits us from a productivity point of view. We've got well, don't ask me, ask the guys and girls who work for us, but I think we've got a happy team. For instance, one of my senior colleagues, and this is just a nice example, it's not the be-all and end-all, but one of the guys always wanted to have a dog for his own well-being, but he couldn't have a dog because of his working arrangements. He's had a dog for the last 4 years since we came out of COVID, you know, and he's better for it. Previously, in our company culture, having a dog in the office would have been an absolute no-no. Now we love them, you know. Now and again my dog comes in with us. Maybe that's a silly example.
It's not, though. I mean, I can totally relate to that, Andy, to be honest. We didn't have a dog during COVID, but we have got a dog now, which we've had for over 2 years, little Betty. We've got a little pug. But, you know, having that, it's when you go in sometimes, or even if you're working at home, and you go home and you've had a bit of a tough day or a long day, the characters and the enjoyment that they do bring, as much as the time they take looking after, don't get me wrong, but that enjoyment, and I can fully relate to your colleague, you know, your senior colleague, who feels that enjoyment and gets that sort of mental well-being from that, even just going for a walk with a dog. It's
really important. One of the nice things we've got, as you've seen, is we've got a garden in our office at Spode, a rooftop garden, which is just an amazing space. So when the weather's half decent, or certainly when it's lovely, we go out there and work, and we'll have a meeting in the garden, or, you know, it's become a centre of the social hub in Stoke in the summer. You know, we get lots of people around on a Friday afternoon, and I think if anything good's come out of COVID, it maybe just take a look at yourself sometimes. And I love the fact that, you know, I very rarely wear a suit to go to. In fact, if ever, I wear a suit when it's appropriate, but not as a rule. And I think I want iCreation to be a place where people feel comfortable, whether that's employees, customers, friends, you know. And one of the things we've got in Stoke here, which we haven't touched on, but I'll touch on briefly, is that close group of people in our industry, which really in other cities, especially in places like London, would just wouldn't happen. But we've got a community of creatives.
Yeah.
So we've got a formal community in the Createch cluster, which is a really important, little group. And we've got some excellent work like the internship project that we're running in the summer with VCCP and Lesniak Swan. 14 paid internships in creative sector is not to be sniffed at. We've also got, as you know, friends and colleagues in the industry who really should be competitors and probably are competitors, but we've got a very positive relationship. And I think that's got to be good news for our city and our county.
Yes.
It's got to be good news for the future. We're able to collaborate, we're able to share, and sometimes just be kind to each other, which I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, that creative sector you mentioned, I know of that for yourselves and for others who are involved in that, Andy. And for me, it is something which, like you've just mentioned, is quite valuable. It's something which is really special for Stoke-on-Trent as a whole. You're all based down there as well, around that little Spode sort of sector where the quarter is and everything, Pot Bank and all that sort of thing. But for me, that collaboration as well, like you say, going forward into the future, even for the future way of working continuing as well, and the ongoing development of creatives, I think is something pretty crucial.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got lots of ingredients for the cake of a great place here in Stoke-on-Trent. So, and there are lots of sort of strategic threads which potentially could come together. And I think one of the drivers behind the Createch cluster was that we're all sort of doers and achievers. We all want to accelerate things and make things happen. Sometimes we get a little bit impatient by the mechanisms by which things happen. And sometimes I think groups of people like us need to just take control and just start to make things happen themselves. I don't believe that the local authority is always best placed to deliver specialist progress. And sometimes the private sector is, and don't start me on procurement, things like that, but sometimes the private sector is not involved to an extent that it should be. And there has been some projects where the creative sector in Stoke-on-Trent is an absolute shoe-in to be leading, but isn't involved. So I think one of the things we thought in the creative sector is, well, what can we do to influence the future of the place? But also, what can we do to move it forward? So, we've got people in there who are offering, we're spending our own money to provide paid internships this summer. And the aim of that is to support the effort to keep graduates in Stoke-on-Trent. So we've got the best gaming school in the country at Staffordshire University, amazing stuff going on at Keele, amazing stuff going on at Stoke-on-Trent College and Newcastle College, even places like YMCA North Staffs, a very different organisation, but some amazing young people there. So what we want to do is give opportunities to people to come into our industry, find out more, and hopefully we'll either create employment or encourage them to stay. Now, that feeds into the whole thing about expanding Spode, expanding the creative village, bringing more businesses, making it into a retail, living, hospitality, leisure hub, that thrives off the creative businesses. And, they've got it in Birmingham at the Custard Factory, they've got Northern Quarter in Manchester. I've worked in Worcester to create a similar organisation as a consultant. Why shouldn't we have that here? So we've got to.
Yeah.
And if we don't do something, it's never going to happen. So, I'm really, well, it's great to have the people who are involved in the Createch cluster because we're like-minded. We had an event in October where, we weren't sure what impact it would have, and all of a sudden 80 businesses turned up at our event. I'm not sure if it was the pizza we offered or the fact that the bar was open, but they came. And we've got another event coming up on March the 7th where we're really pleased to announce that Emma Bridgewater is coming along to speak on creative issues, and that's a real coup for us. It's the night before International Women's Day.
Yes.
It's really important. And that's being promoted at the moment again. So we really want people to come along and take part, and make this network of kindness and collaboration, and good things will come from it.
And just before you go then, Andy, do you just want to give details on the event on the 7th of March?
Yeah.
Where exactly is it taking place and how can people find more information?
Okay, right. Well, it's taking place at the factory floor at Spode, and the way into it is through our LinkedIn group, which is, if you look on LinkedIn for CreateX Social, it is, we do limit access to people who work in creative industries, and we're quite strict about it actually. But if you work in creative industries, if you're a creative, and get in touch and let's see if we can get you along. But it will be a good one. There will be more events, and we're going to do events targeting young people and different sectors as well. So we may even do like a manufacturers event, so some of the people who want to come along can come along and see us. But yeah, I mean, just having a look at the LinkedIn page is really worth it. We've got the video feeds from the last one where we actually had Josiah Wedgwood as our guest speaker, so it's worth a watch just to see how we did that. And yeah, it's a really good group.
Brilliant. Andy, thank you so
Not
much
at
for
all.
coming in.
Not at all,
It's been an
thank you.
absolute pleasure. That's Andy Jackson from iCreation, based down there in Spode, in the middle of the CreateX Centre in Stoke-on-Trent.
Business Spotlight. Shining a light on our local business community. Brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.